Okay. All right. Well, might make a start. What do you reckon, guys? You ready to go?
Go for it.
Okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of Footy, Forests and Family. My name's Matt de Jongh, and today we have some special guests joining us all the way from Dubai. So we've got Natasa Sikman, Sara Bray, and Mick Stephens. So can you please tell us what the three of you have been up to over in Dubai at the moment? What's the attraction? What's going on over in Dubai?
Hi, Mac. We're over in Dubai for COP28, and it's been quite an interesting time here. Massive, presence at COP28 this year, and lots of talk about forestry, but also energy and, how we're going to actually achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. It's really intense over here, but also really fantastic. Lots of Australians, and we're here flying the flag for forestry.
We've been catching up with mates as well, like that we've made connections that we've made previously at last COP as well, with our friends that are other industry associations around the world, and other contacts that we've made, like at Institute of Architects and other things from different countries. So it's been fun to see them again and make some new friends as well. Lots of interesting sessions that we've been watching as well, sort of trying to get a feel for where this conversation in climate change is going to be going next. Just when you feel like you're getting on top of it, there's a new layer, and there's a new thing that the activists are going to be pushing. So it's been good. It does feel like it's a bit more positive. Like there's maybe a bit more feeling of action. I don't know what Mick thinks.
Well, it's been a really busy schedule, Matt. The delegation that's AFPA and the National Farmers Federation and TQ's tagged along at a state level. Just the amount of events that the team's done, that Natasa and Sara and everyone, it's just been outstanding. Just flying the flag, getting us on the radar as a forestry industry. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of busy days, but we enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to add also, it has been positive for forestry in the sense that Australia has signed up. So there's something called the Building Breakthrough. It's looking at the construction sector, a really hard to abate sector, but Australia signed up to something called the Coalition of Greening Construction with Sustainable Wood. And the forestry ministers back in Australia met this week, and they made mention of that. And I think that is a real change of mindset to start thinking about how we can, that this sector can actually play a really significant role in that really hard to abate sector. And yeah, go on.
And don't forget, Natasa, tell them the amazing commitment that the government made this year this year at COP with those countries, those other countries.
Yeah, that's right. So they've signed up to this coalition that they're going to look at policies to actually start decarbonising the built environment by 2030. So they really want to turbocharge getting those emissions down in a really hard to abate sector with sustainable wood. So, and yesterday we were at a session around the pledge of halting deforestation by 2030. The conversation there is all about sustainable forestry. They get it in that room, and I think that is being brought up into a higher order of debate down at the COP. So it's fantastic being here, and I'm outside. I'm sitting outside, so I don't know if you can hear a plane flying over right now. But it's. I'm so pleased that we're here, because last night we had even the Australian government hosted drinks for Australians, and the ministers were there. Minister Bowen and Assistant Minister Jenny McAllister, and just to be on the ground in the face of these ministers and to be discussing these really important issues for our sector. I know we jumped really deep, but it's just really intense over here in the sense of the conversations that are happening, and exciting. I mean, it's the first. I mean, Sara and I went to COP27, and these conversations were not happening. So it's really fantastic to see them at COP28.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to show my age here, Matt. So I've been telling the team that I went to COP in 2010, which was in Mexico. And at that time, we still didn't even have wood products recognised as a carbon store. So this is progress. Every year we get more progress, and the debate gets more mature. And even at the state level, we had a reception with Queensland business leaders and the Deputy Premier. At the moment, the Premier's just resigned. Breaking news this morning. So who knows? He actually may be the Premier. But we had a conversation about exactly what Natasha's talking about. He's here. There's a breakthrough in buildings. We got the Brisbane Olympics. We've got all this infrastructure. So the ability to have access to MPs and decision makers and other bodies, it's just invaluable.
I saw that. I saw that. Oh, sorry. I saw that photo of you, Mick. You're always good for a good photo. I think you and I sort of compete a bit on LinkedIn for different photos, that type of stuff. So that's a great photo. Yeah.
I'm trying to compete with you, Matt. You're pretty good at it as well.
Yeah. But I was just gonna. You've just touched on. I'm just gonna ask all three, because you obviously have been to previous COPs before. Like it sounds like there's been some really good gains made, particularly around that whole deforestation versus sustainable forest management. So you've got a really strong sense that globally there's a real recognition that sustainable forest management, particularly certified sustainable forest management, is absolutely not deforestation. Is that the sort of message you're getting from a lot of the delegates there?
100%. Yesterday at the session, clearly Canada and France are good friends in relation to forestry. I think it was France.
Yeah.
And they were emphasising that point, but also, the European Union deforestation regulation as well coming out. There was also some conscious discussion about the fact that now they're really going to be looking for certified timber, the EU.
Yeah.
And I think that'll drive a lot of certification, and that'll be good because the EU is obviously going to be demanding deforestation-free timber and other products, and I don't know, I guess that may be a direction that Australia goes eventually. At the moment, we obviously can't have illegal logging happening in Australia. We can't import legally logged timber, but whether or not we go that next step, it seems inevitable to me. But I mean, to go from Mick's point, Cancun, where there was nothing about timber last year, we were obviously beating the drum, and our friends, our colleagues in the other industry associations for timber were beating the drum as well. But to have, a commitment by the Australian government, the UK government, the US government, that they're all going to increase the amount of timber in the built environment by 2030.
Yeah,
it's pretty good, and that's going to be awesome for us for the next year, working with government to actually achieve that, because they're going to need a lot of help from industry, and it helps us have that next conversation, which we all have been wanting to have in Australia, but haven't necessarily fully got the traction that I think that issue deserves. Is there needs to be a mature policy discussion about where is this timber going to come from? Where are we going to plant the trees? We need more trees in the ground now. Natasha made a really good point. Which event was that, Natasha? You made that really clear. I think it was the architects.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we had an official side event with the UNSCCC, and we partnered with the American Institute of Architects, the Royal British Institute of Architects, and Heating and Refrigeration Association in the US, and the EPD fellow from, Sarah, remind me.
He was from Egypt, but
from Egypt, but dealing with the international EPDs, and they love the idea of building with more timber and sustainable product. But we did talk about the fact is they need to understand that even if we were to get all the trees in the ground today that we need for the future, we're still looking 30, 50, 70, 100 years time for these trees to grow. So it's a complex policy space, and it needs a lot of certainty around it if they really want. There was talk about agroforestry, for farmers. Why won't farmers put trees on their properties? And I guess it is that policy uncertainty. We see the policy landscape change so rapidly around forestry, and I think our farmers are really concerned if they put those trees on the ground, will they actually be able to harvest them and sustainably continue that process? We also have Michael Taylor with us, the Farmer of the Year last year, great agroforester here, beating the drum for agroforestry. And I guess there's just so many exciting things happening for our sector is that next year in March in France, they're actually going to have a greening construction forum. It's going to be, they're going to invite all the construction ministers, they call them, so the building ministers, and we would hope that Australia attends this forum in France next year on the 7th and 8th to start talking about how do we start reducing emissions in the built environment. We're in Dubai and there's not a timber building in sight. And I'm sitting outside and there are massive high rises everywhere. I mean, it's a bit challenging to be in Dubai, you know, an oil-rich country, thinking about how do we decarbonise and move to that low-carbon circular bioeconomy, because there's not a lot of evidence of it here in Dubai, but it's I guess positive that people are still having that conversation.
Yeah, and I guess they're signalling that transition, you know, by hosting the event, and, you know, a lot of talk about renewables and wind. But you touched on the farm forestry, and I see two big trends at this COP. One is the built environment, and the fact that we've got Michael Taylor and the NFF, and we're talking a lot about agroforestry. And you know, you probably know, I mean, I'm a big advocate. I think that's the way we're going to really encourage new investment. And just the side discussions we have. So that event that Natasha talked about, we had the farming guys, and we were having a side discussion with Minister Bowen just about this. We had the Carbon Market Institute talking about methodology. So, you know, the ability to have those conversations is great. But this is team forestry, and we're actually the other thing is we're all sharing an apartment as part of this, so we're certainly immersed in it. And I got the broom cupboard initially for one of the rooms. So not only did they put me in the broom cupboard, we had a leaking roof.
He had a leaking roof. The roof literally leaking. He had a big pot.
So, you know, the things
he had to empty it. It was ridiculous.
The things we do, Matt, for the cause. But no, it's
weren't you sharing an apartment with Joel? I actually warned Joel that you're a bit of a snorer, Mick. How'd you two guys go sharing an apartment together? How'd that go?
Well, that's why I had the broom cupboard, because he had the big room.
I was going to say. I assume Joel had the good room. Yeah.
That's right. And then when he had to leave early, I was able to move into the bigger room. So.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was just going to ask you. Oh, sorry, Sarah.
I was just going to say, this year it does feel like the policy makers, the politicians who are here, I mean, the actors, you know, people like us and the ENGOs and, you know, the others that come, we've known for some time, but the plans that the governments have had is not enough. They have to really put everything on the table. We can't have philosophical debates where things are off the table, which affects us, right? Obviously, you know, issues like native, but even in plantation now we have activists who are anti it for reasons. But I feel like everything's on the table. Like last year there was a nuclear pavilion and it was tiny. It was about Mick's broom cupboard, big enough for a single bed, and you could get to the single bed sort of thing. And everyone was literally physically giving it a wide berth. This time we've actually got world leaders talking actively about it, and I'm not saying necessarily that's the way we should be going or anything, but it is just nice to see that all the options are now starting to be on the table. I think that is really positive for us, because you know, there's been a lot of talk about getting to net zero, but you know, we've all been in the forestry sector just frustrated going, well, how are you going to get there? Because there has to be a net. And the net zero.
And I was just going to say, at this COP, there's a report called the Global Stock Take, and that is actually looking at all the NDCs. The NDCs are the nationally determined contributions. They're the commitments the countries make to get to net zero. Based on the current NDCs, we are going to be 10% over to where we are now. So we are nowhere near reducing emissions at the rate or the scale that we need to if we are actually to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. And that is why we're all here. So, you know, 2050 is not that far away, and mitigation and adaptation is becoming also far more part of the conversation. And last year at COP27, we took Mark Wooten with us, who's a farmer from Jigsaw Farms in Victoria, he planted production trees, over 25 years ago, and he's been a carbon neutral farmer since 2011. And I think people are starting to get that. Same with Michael Taylor being here now as well. People are starting to realise we need to look at that land use issue, and it's not easy, but we have to make it attractive to farmers to actually want to plant the production trees, and that comes back to this policy certainty. And we see the debate in Australia right now around renewables and those transmission lines going on farm. And, there does need to be more consultation with landholders. And yesterday, Sara held a fantastic event in the Australian Pavilion with our Pacific Island colleagues, as well as the Jaja Wurrung people. They sent in a fabulous video, and we'll put that video up, just talking about, First Nations land management. These people, all of us collectively, need to make space for these conversations. And I'm really proud of AFPA that we have done this for the second year in a row and allowed that space for our Pacific neighbours to actually be talking about some of the challenges that they have with forestry as well, and land use, and their Indigenous people as well. And I think that these things, need space, and AFPA has done that 2 years in a row, and it's I'm really proud of the team to have made that happen.
Now, Matt, I noticed that this podcast is about footy, forest, and family, and because we've just we just smashed forestry because we love it so much. Yes. I'm waiting to get onto the footy.
I know, Mick, you're a one-eyed Western Bulldogs supporter. So how are they shaping up? You probably haven't had much time to think about them, but how are they looking in the pre-season for next year?
Well, the best thing about being a dog supporter is that they've always been the underdogs for many years. And so I mean, my proudest moment was they won the 2016 grand final, and I took my son down. And since then, since 2016, we've been very competitive and very good. So fingers crossed. We make the 8. We're competitive. We're always a chance. So things are going better. I waited 45 years for them to make a grand final, and then I went to that grand final and they won. So
it was an epic grand final as well.
It was an epic.
It was. You didn't have to be necessarily a fan of footy to appreciate that. I watch one game of footy a year, and it's the grand final. I pretty much my sport that I watch, and the sport that my husband's interested in, is politics, actually. But I do watch the grand finals, and that one was an epic one.
Yeah,
because you're based in South Australia these days, aren't you, Sara? So you're probably are you like an Adelaide or Port fan, or who do you go for?
It's confusing for me. I'm look. Obviously, I've watched a lot of AFL in my life, because that's what we do. I don't really understand these other codes that happened on the East Coast. But mostly I've actually really supported. My dad's a mad Port supporter, has been his whole life. So when they got in the AFL, he was keen as mustard. Does go for the Crows if the Port aren't playing. But actually, my brothers grew up with a guy called Tyson Edwards who played for the Crows for a really long time, and so we all followed the Crows, and we actually watched the games when he was playing. But when he retired, he had testicular cancer, retired. So we pretty much stopped watching footy at that point. And then when he came back as a coach for Port, so then we all become Port supporters, and we're still watching Tyson run around in his assistant coaching role. But now he's out, so we don't watch the footy anymore.
I think Mick's got pretty fond memories of the Adelaide Oval. Mick, didn't you spend your university days at the Adelaide Oval? You were telling me that.
I did.
Not sure how much of it you can remember being in the Adelaide Oval, but probably a bit of a drunken blur. But you spent a bit of time there, didn't you, in your glory days?
Oh, it's a famous ground, Adelaide Oval, and the greatest thing about it, it's got a great timber hotel with cross-laminated timber built on the side of it, which is a great project. Yeah.
And I'm just going to do a shout out, Mick. I'm not a really big football fan either, but I am. My family's been involved with soccer and ice hockey and a few other things, but I'm going to give a shout out to the Matildas this year. They did such a fantastic job. And so if I have to watch anything, it's going to be women's soccer. And I think, I'm going to raise it. And actually, I was at Mick's Timber Olympics Forum early this year, Mick, whatever that was. Fantastic to, think that we will have an Olympics with, carbon neutral timber, playing a really significant role there. But for the women's soccer, they were banned from playing. Women's soccer was banned from 1921 to 1971. Now, everyone in their right mind would be thinking, how on earth did that happen? But I feel that gives hope to our sector when we think things are being banned today. That does not mean that things cannot be reversed in the future. So because you've got to keep the fight up. And I guess that's, probably going to be my parting message for everyone on this podcast is, for things that are right, and women playing soccer was right, or football, or whatever we're going to call it for women, but, they had to fight for 50 years to be recognised. And now it's unthinkable to think, how on earth did that ever happen? And I think there will be a turning of the tide for this sector as well. We saw it here.
Yeah.
Timber, sustainable wood is just going to be the way of the future, and governments of all persuasions across all jurisdictions need to start getting their heads around that. And so, it's an exciting space.
Yeah, definitely. I think
I know I'm
Sorry,
going back
Matt.
to forestry when we were talking about football.
No, you keep. No, that's good, Natasa. You keep going, Mick. Sorry, you're going to say something. You go, Mick.
I was going to say, parallel to that is, obviously the opportunities with Indigenous forestry. And again, we're reaching out. We've got a whole lot of stakeholders here that we're working with, there's the Indigenous Carbon Foundation and others, talking about, how do we move forward, with their aspirations and what they want to do on their forest land. So again, I'm like Natasa. I think in the long run, good policy, good advocacy, in the end, common sense prevails, but, it can take a bloody long time.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, another lever that that we found out about yesterday, there was a launch of a report about, as you might remember, Matt, the COP26. They had the deforestation pledge, had a heap of things in it, but that's what it's known as, right? That by 2030, the globe's going to stop, halt, and reverse, whatever that means. Deforestation. We obviously hope reverse means expansion of forests and, then hopefully more forestry opportunities. But they've done a stock take of that, a mini stock take of that. And the report is called Off Track and Falling Behind. And so I think that's where, again, they made a commitment. They started tracking it, they've realised they're not making it, and hopefully then everything's going to be on the table. I think it's a massive opportunity for our sector, and they specifically shouted out agroforestry, but the Canadian minister that was there was really talking about their expansion that they've been doing in Canada and other things. So I think it's a great opportunity for us, Australia, but globally as well.
So I was just going to ask, you talked a bit about activists a few times, Sara. So with other countries, do they have similar issues internationally? Do you sort of find that they have similar issues around misconceptions and ideologically based rhetoric around deforestation and forestry?
They do. That disconnect, it's a global trend, more urban populations, and that can, without proper education of the community, lead to a disconnect with how our products are made. And I think we're seeing that. We have learned, we were talking to our mate Kate Lindsay from FPAC Forest Products Association of Canada, and they've actually just started a community education campaign, broad, long-term community education campaign. Sweden apparently has been doing it for some time. They've copied some of those, some of the learnings from there. So they have started to see a bit of a change, but it is really interesting talking to our friends at other industry associations, because their problems are different and yet so similar. The issues that they have with some stakeholders, some actors, are often quite different. Obviously, in Europe, they've got a lot of issues in relation to plantations and activists. But it's just odd, the different issues, and it's interesting to talk to them about the different issues that come up. It's completely unpredictable and comes from the side if you don't know much about that country. So really interesting. And there's been a number of collaborations that came out of last year. I'm sure Mick found a Cancun as well, like that. Could really work on some of these connections so that we don't have to be recreating the wheel. It's nice to know that we're all actually together on this, and I guess Rosshampton setting up the International Sustainable Forestry Coalition, I think that's right, has already got some early wins with this breakthrough agenda. And he ran an event just bringing everyone together from the different industry associations around the world. So AFPA did that informally last year. It was nice to have somebody else organising it, not Natasha and I, and that was really nice. But also that they're really thinking closely about how we can increase collaboration across the world, not just the industry associations, but the companies as well. Because we should be learning from each other. We are dealing with some similar issues. We should be learning from each other and launching ourselves off their learnings.
So has that been a key take-home message for all three of you to come out of it? The fact that collaboration is probably the three most important things. I mean, that's, for me as a forester for about the last 25 years, that's probably one thing that I've been a bit frustrated with the industry or the sector. I think we do a great job, and I'm very proud of being a forester, but we don't collaborate that well, and at times we can be a bit sort of fractured and a bit fragmented. Is that probably a bit of a, and it sounds like what you're talking about with the international group that Ross has set up, and I think David Brand might be the chair as well from New Forest.
Yep.
They seem to be kicking some real goals there. So I don't know if you had any sort of thoughts on that.
Well, I absolutely agree. It's collaboration and consistency in messaging, and getting other partners on understanding, and then they become advocates with you. Yeah. That's definitely, that's been I think one of the key take homes for me.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And I guess,
okay. No, you go, Natasha.
Oh, yeah, and I think it's also, which we also saw last year, is if you're not here actually when these conversations are happening, no one stands up for your sector unless you're here. There are so many people. There's over 80,000 people at COP. They've all essentially got their own agenda. You have to come and you have to be part of the conversation in real time. And I think that's something we learned last year, but reinforced this year. And, that old adage, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And then, as Mick and Sara are saying, it's not only collaboration within the industry, but across other sectors. And that is talking to the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, talking to, the architects, for instance, having those third-party champions, I guess, for the sector, because they love the product. People love the product. And I should say, whilst we don't have timber buildings here in Dubai, but I've found one, inside the building, certainly there's lots of beautiful timbers and all the rest. So it is, we're still using those recyclable packaging type products. You don't see the plastics anymore. And, we will need all products that we can get from nature to actually decarbonise our future economies. But we also have to think about nature and the impact on nature, and that continuing to, understand the importance of biodiversity and a healthy ecosystem and all these other things, all these conversations that need to happen. And the forestry sector is doing lots of really good things, and obviously we can do things always better, as everyone can. And as new data and science comes onto the table, you need to adopt that and understand how that impacts your sector. But the key takeaway is you have to be here. If you're not, nobody's going to speak for you. And I think that's the real critical takeaway that I've taken again from this call.
And that's reputation and trust as well. You're seen as a genuine player because we are genuine players, and you build the trust of the politicians and decision makers and other groups. But Matt, I'm just conscious of time, and the team are probably going to send me down to get them a coffee soon.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. No, that's great. No, thank you. No, it's been great to you. Just, I suppose I didn't really get to touch on my footy experience, but I'm a diehard South Sydney Rabbitohs rugby league fan. So also a diehard Wallabies supporter too. So both of those teams have gone through some pretty rough trots over the years, and I kind of liken it a bit to forestry. Like, I like Mick's analogy about the underdog, and I feel like with forestry, we are definitely the underdog. So I feel like whether it's for work or pleasure, we're sort of always the underdog. And I know, talking to Joel Fitzgibbon a few times, Joel's told me he likes a good fight, and I think we all like a good fight. So I think that's great what you're all doing over there in COP. Oh, sorry, Sara, you're going to say something?
No, and I think it's not a fight for a fight's sake as well. It's a fight to make sure we're still in the bus. We've got to make sure we're in
Yeah.
the bus when it takes off. And I think we're starting to see that we're in first gear now. I think the bus is not we as AFPA, but or Timber Queensland, but the forestry sector is in the bus. Like some of these world leaders are now talking about needing timber in the built environment. We keep pushing our message. They're going to work out we need more trees in the ground. And countries like Australia, like Canada, like the US, countries where there's space to do so, where it's socially acceptable to do so, need to be doing more expansion of their forestry operations, because everybody's going to want this wood. And I mean, one of the things we have been hearing is those little carbon atoms. Everybody wants them. They want them for sustainable aviation fuel. They want them to replace plastics. We need them for the built environment, and there's just not enough. There's not enough of them, and there at least has been a start of a conversation, but they haven't got to the obvious conversation that we have in forestry. Trees in ground are needed.
Yeah, and it is that holistic narrative now. It's not seen just as trees in ground, but this is where the sustainable wood pledge and this coalition of getting more to green the construction sector and looking at it from a holistic point of view. Where is that wood going to come from, and all those other demands that are going to come as we again move to a low carbon circular bioeconomy. We cannot continue to go down the path we are, because again we've been told, you know, the changes to the climate are going to be quite severe. And Matt, I mean, we're in Dubai, but I saw that there was a massive storm that went through Canberra and trees are down everywhere. You know, the weather is changing, and we need to adapt and mitigate and move fast.
Well, it feels like Queensland. I love it. Every morning we get up, despite what you just said about what's happening, but to lighten it up, maybe it's it's very sunny. It feels like Queensland, but there's no surf. Unfortunately, there's no surf, so I am missing the surf back home.
I was just going to ask all three of you before we go, have you had a chance to get out and about and have a bit of a look around? And what are the sort of key take-home sort of things that you've seen, or the most memorable moments that you've experienced in your time over in Dubai? Just quickly.
Well, we've certainly got to know the transit system. That they've got an amazing metro system where all the delegates get on the train and trams and go straight to the convention centre. So I must say that's impressive. And it's a fairly new city. I mean, all these new buildings and infrastructure that's going in is quite amazing.
I mean, for me, like I've done a lot of travel in China for work previously, and I think one of the things they do really well here is you've got the high rise. We're in a building that's a 40-story building. That's twice the size basically of our biggest building in Adelaide, where I live. But just outside, so you've got a whole heap of them in this big development. I don't know, 8 of them or something. So, hundreds, thousands of people living here. They've got some outdoor space. So, we go downstairs on our way to COP, and you can see kids and old people, and, they're all outside enjoying the fresh air together in a community. It's something that we don't do in Australia. We have got mid-rise, high-rise buildings, but we don't have that open space immediately below. And I think it's a good lifestyle. If you're going to be living in a high-dense environment, you need that outdoor space. And, I mean, I just know in Adelaide, you put up a high rise and it's fully to the boundary and there is no open space immediately around it. And I think we could definitely learn from Dubai and other countries that have got better high density living.
And I guess for me, it's just the people, meeting the people here. They're really genuine and lovely. And we met a wonderful taxi driver from Pakistan who has worked here for 9 years. He was a teacher. And he's got a wonderful story. He was a teacher in Pakistan. He got paid $50 a month only. So he had to do something different. And he came to Dubai. He works here 2 years on, and then he goes home for 3 months only. But because of the work that he does here, he's been able to set up, he lives in rural Pakistan, and he's been able to set up, solar in his own, back in Pakistan. But he supports his wife. He's got triplets. He supports his sisters going to school, and he also supports his mum and dad. And I think that's something I think Australia can maybe take away as well, a little bit about this connection of family and, not leaving anyone behind, I guess. For me, it's really interesting. It's just really interesting to see just how connected people are and how they will sacrifice and how much they work to survive. And I think Australia is such a fantastic country, and sometimes we we don't appreciate maybe just how fantastic Australia is and how much you can do in Australia from a lifestyle perspective. And, you know, it's really, it's tough for a lot of people. And, yeah, some more thought to how people are living in other countries and the sacrifices that people are making to make ends meet is really eye-opening, but they're really happy. You know, he's very proud of being able to support his family. So it's really lovely to meet him.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Natasha. Probably a good way to finish. I know Mick's chomping at the bit to get going, but good way to finish about the family. We didn't really get to talk about the family too much. It was too jam-packed with forestry, bit of footy in there, but not too much family. But I'm sure
sorry,
all
Matt,
three.
Yeah. I was just going to stop you there because actually I got coffees yesterday. Mick does not always get coffees. He's doing
Okay, righty. Okay. Yeah.
I got called out there. I mean, but I'm going to do the coffees this morning. How's that?
Anyway, you can see we're as the family still got tension points in over in Dubai.
Yeah. No,
feels like a family, Matt. This last week and a half.
It does.
It certainly does, but that's been a great experience.
Sorry, Matt, I interrupted
professional.
No, that's okay. No, that's fine. No, that's a really good point that Mick makes about it being like family. And that's probably one thing that I reflect on as a forester. I mean, I believe in the science. I believe in what we do. I've worked as a forester, but it's the people. I just love working in forestry with the people. And it really is like a family. Like, doesn't matter where I travel. I mean, we all four of us travel around the country, around the globe for forestry, and wherever you go, it's just something special about working in forestry. So that's probably it is like a family, really. So I guess that's why we called this podcast Footy, Forestry and Family, because that's it certainly is a big part of it. But anyway, I'm sure all three of your families are really looking forward to getting you back home in the next few days. Are you all flying out in the next day or two, or how much longer till you head home?
Well, I fly out tomorrow evening. Yeah, I fly. I'm first out, and you know, my family will be very pleased to see me. But sometimes I think it's nice that they know that I go away for a couple of days and I have a bit of a break. Yeah. Just to be honest. No, but seriously, I'm really keen to get back and and see them.
Yeah, and then Sara and I are flying out. We get home on Thursday, and Matt, you know, I've got a son in the military. He gets home on the Friday, so I'm really excited.
That's exciting.
Been away in the
That's
council
awesome.
for a while, so yeah.
You've got a little one, don't you, Sara? You've got a young one. Waiting for you.
I do, and we have a tradition. We've had a tradition since he was born that we go down to the local Bunnings, and the Lions Club there sells fresh Christmas trees. And so we've had a tradition since he was born to have a fresh Christmas tree and decorate the tree. But 5 years ago, I did plant a radiata in the backyard, and unfortunately, I wasn't there for the harvesting and the decoration of that tree. So I am looking forward to getting home and smelling the tree. I mean, it's been flat strap here, Matt, so it'll be nice to get home and have that wind down time in the lead up to Christmas, because it is just a beautiful time of year. So really looking forward to that and seeing some family over Christmas.
Yeah, there's something special about having a pine tree in your house over Christmas. I reckon that was one of the perks of being a forester. Used to always have pine trees in our house for Christmas time. So don't quite get that these days, but that's great. Look, I just want to really thank Natasha, Sara, and Mick coming all the way from Dubai. Really appreciate you giving up your time and particularly holding off on that important coffee that you're about to have. So thank you very much, and safe travels, and hope to catch up with you all very soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'll just stop recording now. That was great. No, thanks, guys.